I have comments. I promise you, Mr. J and I did not speak prior to this. And my comments are already well written here in the notes. And I echo the same comment in that we have, at the end of the STD testing video, it does have the viewer presented with a URL for Planned Parenthood. It includes a link to plannedparenthood.org at the end. In speaking with, kind of a trusted inner circle of community members, every single one of them felt it was appropriate that we do not point anyone in any specific direction. And actually multiple suggestions came back that we create our own content for that. And on the 7th grade video, the sexual abuse can happen to anyone. That, as far as I can tell, it's on a YouTube site or a link or a page coordinated by amaze.org, which works in collaboration for Advocates for Youth. And I just want to make sure I get this right, but I want to say, hey, look, we need to stop and look at this, because if you look at the tax filings for Advocates for Youth, right on their own tax filings, it says their goal is for youth empowerment, to advocate and train thousands of youth activists each year to serve as advocates and leaders in the progressive movement. Advocates help these emerging leaders to shift cultural narratives and improve policy and practice at the local and state levels, centering the health and rights of our youth from marginalized communities. So when we have groups saying that they'd like to shift the national narrative and basically lobbying against elected officials and trying to craft policy, that raises concern for me in desperately wanting our school system to remain nonpartisan. And I have a great concern of who's funding this material to be created. And again, I would strongly suggest that we take that content, and the sexual abuse can happen to anyone, and we make it in-house, that it's for Frederick County. So I do take actually great issue with that, because I don't want to see anything in our system to be politicized in any direction. So when you hear, to have an organization, I want our youth to be activists, but I don't want us to tell them what to be active in. I want them to make up their own minds, and as long as we're leading them in the right direction for appropriate health education, then that's where I think our line ends, and family relationships and family direction, I think, takes precedence over what this is.
So I think Brett, the next thing would be to take the feedback that Mr. J and you have provided and share it with the Family Life Advisory Committee as to what the concerns are, and then it sounds like that you and Mr. J then will make a decision about a board discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, and it's just kind of funny because we're hearing, with a recent climate with, Roe versus Wade in the Supreme Court, that politics has no place in healthcare, but yet we're showing videos to our students, which I think is somewhat directing them to a political direction. And I just think that that's not our job as a system. Our job as a system is to keep them healthy, to keep them safe without politicizing it. And I say that from either direction, whether it's, somebody on a radio show running for an office who's, paid the radio host for services and is now on that, show to, campaigning on FCPS property. I just don't want to politicize our system whatsoever. That's in any direction. So I think I'd like to pull back and look at this. We got two, I'm imagining. Huh?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if we need 3 to have an agenda item.
Sure.
So if it stops with Mr. J and I, and we can't get anyone else on board, for anyone who doesn't know how the board operates, to have agenda items set that isn't dictated by or crafted together with the superintendent and the board president and vice president, you need 3 members to be able to set an agenda item. So Right now, we have two. We would need a third to actually have it be brought up as an agenda item. So I don't want anyone to think that he and I can sit here and be making these comments, but if we don't have support from the other 5 board members, then we're not going anywhere unless I can have discussion with Dr. Dyson in leadership. So just so people know how the board works.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that the two things that we can do as your staff liaison to the CNI committee, my responsibility is to make sure that we can share the CNI committee comments and concerns that were there, and then we'll lead board discussions to board members. How's that? Does that sound fair?
Okay.
Okay.
So it just got punted back to us, Mr. J.
Well, and you gotta remember, from our perspective, the board has approved that Family Life Advisory Committee makes the decisions. And so I know Mr. J has gone on record a couple times saying he didn't vote for that. But I don't want to get in a situation where staff is in a position where we're going against the current decision of the board about who gets to approve materials and when they get to be used in classrooms. And so I certainly understand the concerns that you've laid out there and the questions, and certainly I think the Family Life Advisory Committee can get information back as to why they used a particular video and provide additional information. But when you said pull back, I wasn't sure if you were saying don't let the resources move forward or pull back the conversation back into the board to have discussion.
I'd like to pull it back into the board for discussion because that's the only way we can impact or affect the change. So
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's it.
Just want to be
I just want to make sure we're doing good business.
Yes, ma'am.